A, make sure every time you talk about CBT, I'm going to cut short all this and go straight into the lecture. Hopefully that makes it easier for you to understand and identify CBT element every time you are faced with the circumstances or in exam, right? Therefore, element number one is that you got to look into the relationship of the situation that involves what you suspect to be a CBT. All right. Okay, that's number one. Right. Jadi, what kind of relationship that you must have? The relationship that you must have is this. That person that is the one that is going to be the perpetrators or the one that you are going to accuse with CBT, you must prove, number one, that person has dominant. That person have entrustment and dominant. Two elements, very almost the same, but very distinguished from one to another. The relationship either or, not that he must have two elements of the relationship type, but he must have only either one. Yeah, all right. Okay. Now, what I wanted to say, entrustment is one type of relationship. The other one is dominant, is another type of relationship. Okay. Put your notes to explain that way. Now, let's look into entrustment. Okay, when we talk about entrustment, this person and the person who is the victims or the victims or the person that lose the property, the word entrustment must be connected with a legal contract. There must be a proper appointment. Okay, in the entrustment relationship, right? That one, the other word, the easier word is that person is appointed on ground of trust. Okay, siapa? Give an example, or who is this person that is appointed on ground of trust that he have entrustment relationship with the property. Who could that be? All right, a lawyer, for example. All right, a lawyer, for example, property. Property is not life. Property is property, right? A doctor, although he has a trust that you appoint that doctor, but that is not CBT. All right, okay. Jangan silap because in one of the exam, one of my students give a very bad example. All right, the worst example I have seen. It's not funny. I could be blamed for, giving an example. But this fellow put an example. Financial crimes, example of financial crime is rape. All right, and that is wrong. All right, crime is rape, but financial crime is never rape. All right, okay. So please don't make that kind of mistake. So entrustment is actually a trust that you put on a legal contract that you sign, all right, or an agreement that you sign with another person with regards to holding or uses or appropriating the property. A lawyer is one. When you buy a house, the money is paid and the exchange of money is through this lawyer. That lawyer is said to have a trust relationship or entrusted with the property. The property could be the land or the property could be the money. All right, and trust must have legal contract. So that is the explanation number one. All right, explanation number two for the word entrustment is sometimes this legal contract, it's not through you who appoints it. All right, the appointment is through another person. Okay, especially in a situation where you appoint people in relationship of what we call it, will. All right, benefactor. All right, like say for example, somebody created a will before he died, and in that will, all right, he didn't appoint his lawyer. He appointed his lawyer to do the will, but inside the will he said, right, the lawyer, the person who is going to be in charge of my property is my distant friend who lives in Malaysia. So that friend will have to come in on the day they read the will, and from that day onward, he will be the one that administer all the property. Very rare people do that, but sometimes people do. All right, okay. And if in the will it says, I leave my two twin kids who is only 11 years old, and I'm dying on the day of me dying or the day that I am dead, these two children are going to be, all right, handed over to my best friend Rohani, for example. All right, okay, if that kind of will, and that person dies because she knows she is sick, the husband knows she is sick, or maybe they were simply know one day when they died, all right, the children will be given to her best friend, all right, for example, something like that. That is not CBT, because the property there is the two kids. So, all right, I need to say this because sometimes people get confused easy. We're talking about property, right? Okay, later we can talk about the description of that property. Today we discussed on the word entrustment. Must have legal contact, must have legal agreement, must have a contract for the appointment to make that person entrusted with the property. All right, we clear on the entrustment. All right. Okay, the other one is this. Second one, the relationship is in the form of dominant. Somebody who have authority over someone, dominant. This now we're discussing on the word dominant over property. Let's give a lot of examples over here. In many cases in law, dominant over property usually end up with a fraud. Right? When we talk about fraud, we are going to say that fraud is only one of the element in CBT. That is under the financial situation. All right. Of course, when we talk about fraud, fraud is always the word that is a favorite in a company business. But when it comes to the word in a penal code, all right, the favorite word is CBT, but the description will fall down and diluted to become fraud later. All right, we look into that one later towards the end, or maybe in another discussion. But of course, from time to time, I'll give you the picture of fraud. Okay, let's look into the word dominant. Who could be? My example number one, who can have dominant? Dominant can also be in a situation that involves legal contract. All right, okay. But the other one, the entrustment, the legal contract was more direct, was more powerful, and a standard more clear of the legal contract. Now, dominant, I'll give you an example. All right, mother, parents, and the child. All right, parents and the children, they have dominant. The parents have a dominant situation over authority over the child. Uh, okay, all right. So if they have dominant over the property, why could there be any CBT? Because sometimes it's the other way around. All right, the child acquire a big number of property, but because they are a child, all right, they cannot give a valid legal operative authority over the property. So dominant over the they are then being administered or dominated by the parents. That's number one. Maybe the grandparents give it to the child, but the child at that moment is only underage, so everything is done by the parents. Sometimes when the children or child is an artist overseas, we see in the foreign land, we see that happens most of the time. When a child receive income, a million and million of money, and they are under 12 or they are under 18, all right, they will not be able to go to court to apply for them to be the administrator of the money. So the parents will be the one buy. Now there is no contract, but usually dominant, you don't, the contract is because the relationship of parenthood. Sometimes there is a legal contract. Most of the time in the situation of dominant, there is no contract. All right, that my example, two example there, one with child from money from the grandparents, the other one child who is working himself as an artist. The third one in the dominant situation is when you have a relationship, yeah, with a person who cannot read. All right, a person who are blind, a person who cannot see the documents or whatever it is with regards to the letter of the property. Right? Okay, so you are the one who is going to read to this person. So the person who is reading to the blind chap or to the person who cannot speak and speak by language, for example. All right, sometimes you are under the domination of this person who is acting for you, for your benefit. Sometimes you hire this person who help you see the document. She see the document, read it for you. So that person who reads for you because you are blind, having a situation, relationship of dominant over you. Although she is your employee. All right, okay. Can you see? Because you have some weakness in your senses. Right. Okay. The other one is person who is in coma. Right. Okay. A person who is in coma, lying in bed, unconscious. Unconscious here is medicated. All right. Because either you put in coma or you got into coma. All right. Because you were sick. So in this situation, that person in that category relies on. Maybe you got a house, right? And the house is abandoned. You're in coma for about 2 years instead of the property being abandoned. So your sister decided to rent the house to somebody else. Your sister is a person who has a dominant situation over your property, which is that house. All right. Okay. So you see, in this situation, there is no legal contract, though there is a contract with the man who is, all right, renting your place when you were in coma. Okay. All right. Now let me put another examples. A situation of dominant. Sometimes a situation of dominant is where somebody that you are somebody of authority. Let's look into this situation where dominant is given in a forceful way, but the force is really a silent. Okay, the best is to be described in the case long ago. This case in contract. All right, the case is called Karsal Maldas versus Valiappa Chetia. Kar, Sal, Mal, all L, K-A-R. All right, Kar, Sal, Ma. All right, okay. Mal, M-A-L versus Valiappa Chetia. All right, that is an Indian name. Karsal Maldas versus Valiappa Chetia. Let me try and look into where is chat. Okay. All right. Let me write the name then. Kar Sal Mal Das. Okay. Versus Valiappa Chetia. Okay. If you have heard this before, then you know in this situation, the situation is that Kal Salmal Das was visited by Valiappa Chetia. All right, Valiappa Chetia is a Chetty. Valiappa Chetia is visited by a man called Kal Salmal Das. Both are Indian, both are in Malaysia. Then, all right, in Malaysia, we don't have before Merdeka. All right, right after the Japanese session or during the Japanese invasion in Malaysia, all right, we don't have any bank then, all right, so all money, all lending are from a person called Chetia. These are Indian men with a lot of money, all right, that will lend out you money provided you have something to put as a mortgage. These are like the pajak gadai, mortgage shop, all right? Okay, so one day, Karl Maldas visited Valiappa Chetia with a form 14, form 14, all right, because we inherit the British system to transfer property that in the form of land we must fill up a form 14, 14, 4. All right, form 14, all right, okay, is brought to the Valiappa Chettiar, all right, but the visit of Karsal Maldas on that day, all right, asking Valiappa Chettiar to sign to transfer all his property to Karsal Maldas is actually, all right, assisted by the presence of a Japanese soldier who is standing behind him, Pakasamadas, with two swords in his hand. Tahu, bawa sword. All right, okay. The sword was not raised, but the Japanese soldier was holding his hand over the sword, right? When Karsal Maldas saw it, he was very, when Valiappa Chettiar saw it, he was very scared. So instead of saying anything, he simply just fill up the form, sign it, and make an attestation and hand it over to Kausal Maldas. All right, Das took the paper, go to the English office, all right, okay, and have it authentified. Now the property has transferred from Valiappa Chettiar to Kausal Maldas, right? Dominant. We're talking about dominant, all right? Okay, dominant here is by the presence of the two, all right? For it almost like extortion, but the thing is because the soldier didn't do the any act, simply just standing, all right, and handing over the form of transfer of property within the presence of put this person Karl Salma Das in a dominant position. All right, okay, hope you understand the word dominant in that. All right, that is the most extreme dominant, but not into the extortion situation or coercion or duress. All that in Malay mean paksaan. All right, somebody forced you to do something, but the force is in such a way that it looks more like dominant than it is not. All right, okay, so that is the two explanation of the word entrusted with property and dominant over the property. All right, okay, there is another example. Okay, the case of Salwath Hanim versus Haji Abdullah. Salwath Hanim, all right, Salwath Hanim versus Haji Abdullah. Salwath, D-A-T-H, Hanim, H-A-N, Hanim, all right, versus Haji Abdullah. Okay, that's the second case. Over here, we want to look into dominant. They are brother and sisters. They are siblings, the two of them. But then during this period of time, government is going to take over the property of Salwath Hanim, and then by taking over the property for some kind of development, the government usually, all right, the government will usually pay money, all right. So Salwath Hanim is a person who cannot read document, so his brother, her brother, Haji Abdullah read it for her, all right. Okay, in that, when he was reading to her, all right, being a person who dominates because he can read, the other person cannot read, all right. When he was reading, he simply just changed some part of the provision. The part of the provision was that, all right, accordingly, the government will take more of her land instead of the actual part of the land, actual acres, right? That's number one. All right, he read it wrongly. He read the number of the acres bigger than what it's supposed to be in the paper for her to sign to receive the check for the money. All right. Number two, when it comes to the amount of the money, all right, he told her, all right, that the land is going to be taken temporarily, all right, instead of permanent. So this check is actually the payment for the first installment. I don't know why he did that to his sister, but then after some time, all right, after all the development have already been done by the government, money have already been received by her, she then, all right, realized that she lost the land. She lost the land, and her brother take advantage of the other portion of the land and converts it to his. All right, okay, long ago, to convert and transfer the land, It's really very easy because most of the time people cannot assign. All right, so they use thumbprint. You can get your thumbprint here and there and everywhere easy, especially when you are siblings. All right, so in that situation, she loses too, and she expects the government to pay her more money, but there are no more money coming in. With the help of other relative, all right, she gets to a lawyer and sue and to try to sue the government. That was the first case. And then she realized that the brother had cheated her. That's the right word, cheated, right? Cheating. But then cheating, if in this mode, all right, where you use your dominance, then that cheating, it falls in the category of CBT. Yeah, all right. Okay, as we said before, that cheating can come in many forms. You have to identify the element properly in order to differentiate between cheating that is theft or theft that is cheating, cheating that is CMA or cheating that is CBT. All right, but the element of cheating is still there. My cat is trying to come in. I thought he was already